going straight to our next speaker. And our next speaker needs no introduction. He's a devoted father, tech entrepreneur, software engineer, educator, FreeCodeCamp contributor, WhatCamp speaker, programming enthusiastic, digital marketing mentoring, community building. Oh, I think I haven't missed anything. So let's have a big round of virtual applause for Sumit Saha, founder of Learn with Sumit, logicBase Labs, and Analyzen. He will be introducing us with the brand new caching revolution in Next.js 16 caching components, rethinking caching for modern web. So, Sumit, stage is all yours.
Thanks a lot, Shuragna. I think I'm audible. First of all, please kindly confirm.
Yes, you're very much
Yeah.
audible.
First of all, thanks for the too much introduction. I think I don't deserve that. I think we have Tapas Dai here. He's a big brother to me, and he invited me. He gave me the opportunity to join here. That's everything I can think of, and definitely it's an amazing organization, and the event is going really good. I was just listening to the previous talks, and those are amazing. So I'm a bit nervous, and the topic is very advanced. So the main challenge from my side is to explain this complex topic within 20 minutes. So I have really very small time at hand. So before doing any introduction or anything, I'm just going straight into the code. In fact, I wouldn't have that much slides. So mostly I will do something hands-on, and then if I get any time, then I will talk. So first of all, let me share my screen. So Shubhagna, could you please confirm that my screen is visible or not?
Yes, the screen is visible.
Thank you. So I think Shubhagna has already given my introduction, so I would not go into that detail. In summary, I am actually an YouTuber. That's my current job role right now. So just like Tapurda, so I have two channels. One is Bangla, so that is Learn with Sumit, and recently I have opened an English channel called logicBase Labs. So if you guys can check it out, those. And I also run a company called Analyzen in Bangladesh, which is a digital marketing company. So we provide digital marketing solutions, fintech solutions, and everything. So, and if you need any information about me, you can just go to www.sumitsaha.me. That's my personal website. So that's it. That's it from my introduction. So now and this is my Learn with Sumit YouTube channel, and this is the logicBase Labs English channel. So now let me just minimize the Zoom things. Okay. So today our topic is cache components, right? Next.js cache components. So we already know that this is an advanced concept, as you know. So Next.js 16 has recently dropped a new feature called cache components, and to know this session, you have to have a preliminary understanding about Next.js. Even this is an engineering level topic, so I would try my best to explain as much as possible, as beginner friendly as possible. But definitely you would need some kind of understanding about Next.js 14, 15, or Next.js caching, how it works behind the scene, what is server-side rendering, what is a static-side rendering. So if you don't know them, so I will definitely share a resource at last so that you can check them out later. And also when you get the recording of this session, you can then just join them together and you can study. So let me explain what cache component is. So cache component, as described in the Next.js documentation, cache component lets you mix static, cached, and dynamic content. That's the main part. So the mix word is very important. Back in Next.js 14 and 15, we had to think at page level. Like we have different pages. So, and different pages mean different routes. So all the things that we have to think, like the caching, the rendering strategy, everything were dependent on page level. Cache components first time makes it possible to think at component level. That's like a fine-grained control over everything you have. Okay, so let me explain a bit. Sorry. So consider this is a React tree. When we go to any web page or any React application, for example, something.com/home. So you will land to a home page, right? So that home page is basically a React component, and it has other subcomponents as well. So consider that home page as a set of different components. So in a slide, you can see the yellow mark components are actually static components, and the blue mark components are dynamic component. What do I mean by dynamic component? Those components can fetch data, can query from database, or do some stuff like dynamic things like real-time information, like accessing the cookie or header information or anything. So previously, if we need any dynamic things in any components, if we mark this component as dynamic, the whole entire React tree becomes dynamic. So it will actually, instead of getting rendered statically, it would have rendered dynamically. That means the true SSR. That means in the build time, we will not pre-render the entire page. We will have to render it as a dynamic page or a true SSR. That what we say. So that's the thing that we already know from Next.js 14, 15, and older versions. But first time with cache components, we can actually change our mental model. There is a change in the mental model. Previously, Next.js was doing a lot of magic behind the scene. Next.js tried to make any page static as much as possible. So the mental model was Next.js automatically doing things and try to make things statically for better performance. But in the developer community, they were kind of disturbed about that because, for example, suppose in this blue component, in this component, you are fetching a data. But fetching a data doesn't make that component or the React tree dynamic. So for example, suppose you are fetching a data in this component and suddenly you reload the page and you are not getting the update. So it was confusing. We all know that Next.js was kind of unpredictable. It was actually not unpredictable. We didn't know all the nitty-gritty things behind the scene. That's why we felt that it is unpredictable. But with Next.js cache component, recent component, everything becomes kind of predictable and we get component level control. Previously, our mental model was most of the time Next.js will try to make things static and we had to mark any component dynamic. But with Next.js cache component, the mental model is just opposite. By default, Next.js will consider everything dynamic, and if we want to make any component static, we have to mark it. Okay, so that's the first change. The change in mental model is there. So just consider this website. For example, this is taken from the Next.js documentation. So here is a website and this is a product page, a e-commerce product details page. And here you can see the pink area is a static area and the blue area are actually dynamic area. So from the view, we would expect that this product information will not change frequently. So we want to keep this area static. And also the blue area, these needs to be dynamic because this is the cart area. So this is a personalized area for the user. The cart count can change. So this needs to be dynamic. And below, there is a recommended section, which is also personalized for the user. So this needs to be dynamic as well. So now we can think different components differently. Previously, we had to think to make the recommended component dynamic, we had to make the entire page dynamic. But now we can just keep those pink area static, and we can even we will see the demo a few moments later. Then you'll see. So this is the recommended area. To make this dynamic, we wouldn't have to make the entire page dynamic. So that's the simple thing. Now, so this line is very important, and this was taken from the documentation as well. This will give you a very good idea that we are getting a granular control over what gets cached and what doesn't. Okay, so we have the control at component level. So we can mark which one to keep it static or which one to make it dynamic. Previously, most of the thing was automatically done and too much magic was happening. Now, Next.js gave us the control towards us that you choose which one you want to cache and which one you don't. Okay, and instead of the component level, instead of the page level, we will do that in component level. So, for example, let's get back to this example again. Now, with cache component, we will actually, this pink area will be rendered from the build time HTML output. Okay, this pink area will be rendered statically in the build time, and when a user requests this page, this will be cached, and the cached resource can be served from the CDN or any content distribution network. Okay, and these dynamic areas will be streamed in. You may have heard about Next.js streaming. So if you don't know these topics, I will definitely share my resources so you can combine them together. But right now you can consider streaming as a dynamic thing that after when page loads, it will parallelly request those resources like this dynamic part individually from the server side. Okay, so that's the thing, that's the summary, that's the kind of top level view of Next.js cache component. And this strategy, this layout strategy or this rendering strategy is called partial pre-rendering. Previously, Next.js introduced partial pre-rendering or PPR back in Next.js 14, from Next.js 14, and it was an experimental feature. But right now, actually, the partial pre-rendering is related to the Next.js new cache component. So basically, they have removed the partial pre-rendering experimental flag, and now we will control partial pre-rendering with the cache component. So if we enable cache component in our application, we will get the partial pre-rendering as well. So actually, Next.js cache component will implement partial pre-rendering directly. Okay, so we'll see the example, then you will understand. So finally, I would definitely say the benefits of cache component, these are huge. I have already explained. So basically, we are getting component level granular control. The second one, we are getting the static shell very quickly. We are getting dynamic content. At the same time, we are using the beauty of static shells, like the static parts as well. So the static rendered benefit is also we get, and all, at the same time we are getting the dynamic part as well. So we are getting fast contentful paint and time to first byte. Okay, then as I said, that Next.js became more predictable. Caching and revalidation, these things are now much predictable. Now you can understand whether this will be cached or this will not be cached, even in the development mode as well. Previously in the development mode we had to suffer a lot. And finally, it implements partial pre-rendering, and we don't have to understand partial pre-rendering separately. We will combine it together in Next.js cache component. Okay, so that's what the best of both world kind of approach that cache components and PPR together solves. Okay, so now it's time to go to the example. So I will try to explain in the example as much as possible. So I will stop my presentation, and let me stop it, and I will share my screen of my code screen. So I have a simple Next.js 16 application. So Next.js 16 means I have installed it, just npx create next app, the way we do it. Sorry for my Bangla, so it's interrupting. So
We loved it. We loved it.
okay. So I think everyone understands Bangla here, so no problem at all. We love this language, so it's
Yes.
natural that it will come. So okay, so we have a simple Next.js application. I haven't done anything in the layout file or anywhere. I have just changed some code in the page.js file, and that's where we will code. Okay, so this is the home page. Okay, and this is the browser output. Here you are seeing that just a heading tag and a simple green box. So the heading tag is coming from the h1 tag, and this is the static content, and this data is coming from this fetch request. Okay, so in the component level we have fetched the data. Okay, simple stuff. We do this every time in Next.js 14, 15, and previous versions. So our expectation is it will work, and it's also working. Okay, now we will enable Next.js cache component here, because right now Next.js cache component is not automatic. We need to enable it. So Next.js gave us the option to enable it or disable it. So if you want to use cache component, or if you want to update your previous application like Next.js 14 or 15 application to Next.js 16, you can just turn off the cache component feature, and then it will work as well. So they kept it for backward compatibility. So first, what I will do is okay, so let me explain the fetch API. This is just a random word API that I found just by Googling. So if I go to this URL, every time we hit this URL, we will get a new word. That's why this is called a random word API. Okay, so where is my screen? Okay. So let's get back to the code. So now we will first enable Next.js cache component. Okay, so for that we will have to go to the Next.js config file. Okay, here we will have to say cache. Okay, and I will get the suggestion cache components, and I will make it true. Okay, the moment I do that, now cache component and partial pre-rendering feature is enabled in my Next.js application. Okay, so I don't have any work left here, so I will close this. And now as soon as I do that, you can see I have error. Okay, why? You can see if I go to the browser, you will also get the client-side error as well. And there you can see uncached data was accessed outside of suspense boundary. What that means? If you can recall, in a presentation I said we have to change our mental model. So our mental model was previously we were just fetching a data, and Next.js was statically rendered this page, right? Because Next.js thought this is just an API call. This is not a true dynamic thing. Okay, so the mental model previously was Next.js tried to make it more static as possible. Okay, so it previously considered this as a static page, but now the mental model has changed. Now it considers everything as dynamic. Okay, so now the URL is actually dynamic or server-side rendered or SSR. Okay, that's why it's giving me the error, and it says that uncached data was accessed outside of suspense. Uncached data means this is the uncached data. Previously it was cached, but now it's not cached, because I said that we have to explicitly mark this page as static, or mark this fetch request as a static. Okay, so to solve this problem, we have to just bring in the cache component directive, that is use cache. Okay, if we do that, you will see now the error is gone. Okay. And if we reload the page, everything is fine. So what does this use cache do? This use cache actually marks this page as static. So we are manually marking this page as static. And Next.js by default considered it as dynamic. And as it was dynamic, for performance reason, it gave me a warning or error that this page needs to be dynamic. And you are doing dynamic things. So use suspense. So wrap it with suspense so that I can stream the response. Okay. So that's a beautiful feature. You can understand that. So and this use cache can be used in the file level, like at the top of the file, or we can put it inside the function as well, or in the component as well. Okay. So if I have multiple components in this file, which I will have later, so in that case, you can manually just pass this use cache to this component only. Okay. So if we do that, the output will be same. Okay. So if we think about the tree that we show earlier, suppose this is the home component or this is the component, and there I have marked it as use cache. So this is the static component. Okay. And if we don't mark any component use cache, then it will be dynamic. Okay. But one thing I need to point out here that for example, just fetching data, like this is a dynamic thing. Like, so if we remove this fetch and just cut this from here, if we don't have anything dynamic here, and if I have something static here, for example, let's say data or hello world, then the error will go. Okay, that doesn't mean that this page is dynamic. Okay, Next.js, now the Next.js intelligence will come into play, and Next.js will see that intelligently that this page is absolutely static. There is no dynamic thing at all. So now I can completely render it as static content. So this time Next.js intelligent or magic will come into play, and it will render this page as static. Okay, so but if we do any dynamic thing like before, like the data or fetching something, then definitely this needs to be wrapped in suspense boundary. Okay, so this is the way we have already marked this component as a static. Now we use the use cache, and now for example, let's say, how can I say? Okay, so now let me take you to a diagram to explain a bit. For example, this one. Now our task is to have multiple components in the page. Right now we have only one component, right? And we can mark it static, but we can have multiple components, right? So right now we are not using the partial pre-rendering feature. In ideal scenario or in real world applications, we would have different components at different level. So consider this page. This is a component, this is a component, this is a component. So I want to mark these green mark components as static and these ones as dynamic. These purple ones as dynamic. Okay. So for that, we will actually just create, let's say we will just create a function. I have already written that so that I can explain faster. So this is the dynamic word function. This is just a component. You can place it in the components folder as well. For the simplicity, I will write every component here so that we can understand quickly. So this is a simple component. This is doing the same thing, the fetch request, and it's actually rendering the dynamic content. Okay. Now, if I just remove these things from here and just make it hello, and later we just place the dynamic word here. Okay. If we do that, what will happen? We will definitely get an error, right? Look at that, an error, because we haven't wrapped it in the suspense boundary. Okay. So for that, we will have to wrap it in suspense, React suspense. Okay. Okay. And we can add a fallback here. And I have already created a loading component. Sorry, a loading component. In case you don't understand, this is a simple loading component that just say loading dynamic word with some markup. So now, as I have already, I have removed the use cache from here. So now Next.js considered this as a dynamic page and at the same dynamic component, I would say. And as I have wrapped it with suspense, now the error will go and Next.js will be happy. Okay. So now if we go back to our diagram here, so here the thing which is happening is, suppose this is the component, this is the dynamic word component. Okay. So this one will actually stream in. Okay. So in this page, this is a static component like Next.js 16 cache component. Okay. And this is also a static component, the green one. So these will be statically rendered when we build the page. Suppose now if I go to npm run build, so I will build the application. Okay. So it has already built, and let's look at this. The home page is actually having a kind of moon sign, a half moon sign. Half moon sign means partially pre-rendered. Okay, so that means this page has mixed components like partially static and partially dynamic. Okay, which are the static parts? These are the static parts, and these are the dynamic parts. And these dynamic parts will be streaming in when the user requests the page, and the other parts will stay static, and these will be statically generated. If we see the definition of partial pre-render, it says pre-rendered as a static HTML with dynamic server streamed content. So it's self-explanatory. So we have HTML there, static HTML there, and also we have dynamic part as well. So we are getting the best of both worlds. Okay, fine. So let's quickly go back to our application. So now we can see that we currently know that we have a static and dynamic thing. Now, one thing I would like to mention, that just wrapping a component with suspense doesn't make this component dynamic. Don't get confused. Dynamic word, this is actually a dynamic component. We can see that it's fetching data. That's why this is dynamic. If we remove this part, okay, this part, and if we save this, and if we go there, oh, sorry, it has a data thing. So dynamic word. So make it hello. Okay. See, no error. Now the whole page will be static. If we build it again, see, this is now completely static. So pre-rendered as static content, the partial pre-rendering flag is gone. So Next.js intelligently knows that there is no fetching, there is no dynamic thing, and he didn't find anything dynamic here. So it rendered the page completely static. So just wrapping anything in suspense doesn't mean that it will be a dynamic component. So it only means a dynamic component if you do anything dynamic inside. So like dynamic word, inside that I have fetched the data. It can be fetching data from a database. You can query a database there. You can use access query like such parameters or anything, or you can access cookies, or you can access the header elements. Those are runtime informations. Okay, so in those cases, that component will be true dynamic, and only those true dynamic components needs to be wrapped by suspense boundaries. Okay, so now let's actually do one thing. Let's take you to the documentation first. So this is the Next.js cache component documentation. So if you search in Google, you will land to this page. So here you will see a section called using use cache. Okay, here the true dynamic means, what does true dynamic component means? So basically, we saw already that we can do any database query or any fetch request that is dynamic. At the same time, we can have runtime data like cookies. Runtime information means that user specific, like browser specific, like a user can have different cookies, like you will get different cookie value and I will get different cookie value. So those are runtime informations that cannot be rendered statically. Okay, so runtime data are truly dynamic things. And at the same time, we can have some non-deterministic operations. Like here, you cannot automatically decide whether this would be a static thing or dynamic thing. Like for example, you can use a random number, right? So your Next.js cannot smartly detect that this can be static or dynamic, because you can keep a random number component static or you can keep it dynamic. So it's up to you. That's why you have to mark it. Okay. So let me give you an example. For example, let me first make it two components, static and dynamic, keep it together. For example, let me open the static word component. This is the static one. Here we can use the use cache to make it static component. And then we can, instead of the hello component, we can simply just call it the static word. Okay, we don't need to wrap it with suspense boundary, because this is already a use cache component. So that means it is a static component. So now I have two components, and third component that I will add, that is, let me close this. So this is a random number component. Okay, this is a random number. This is a simple function, and consider it as a separate component. You can keep it in any folder, an external file as well. So this is a component where I am just using math.random, okay, to generate a random number. Okay, and this is called a non-deterministic operation. Next.js cannot figure it out whether you want it to be static or dynamic. Okay, so you have to mark it. One way you can mark it by placing use cache. Okay, and if you don't do that and you use the random number component here, you will instantly get error. Sorry, my dev server is off. Okay, See, you get the error. Okay, so it says what I just explained, that this is a non-deterministic thing. Okay, so we have to either it has already given instruction here. I have to make it either true dynamic, or I can use the use cache thing here, and the error will go. Okay, see, now the dynamic this is a dynamic component, and so this is a dynamic component, and if I reload, look, the number is not changing because I have marked it as use cache, so this is static. This is one way. And if you want to make it a true dynamic component, then we comment it out, the use cache thing. And how can I make this component and tell Next.js that this is a dynamic component? Okay, here we cannot use any cookies or fetch API or anything. This is just a simple JavaScript thing, but it's non-deterministic and it's dynamic. So how can I explain that to Next.js? In Next.js, from Next.js maybe 14, we have a connection API. Okay, this is just a connection API. It actually comes from Next.js server package. And if we just give a await, if we await for the connection, then it will consider it as a true dynamic thing. Okay, so now this component is dynamic. Still, it will show you an error. Why? Because now the component is dynamic, but I haven't wrapped it with suspense boundary. So I will now do that. So this is the example for a non-deterministic value. Now, if I reload, you will see the random number dynamic. Now, in this page, this is a static component. This is a static component. These two are actually dynamic component, which will be streamed in when we build a production build, and even in the development version as well. Okay. So that's it. So that's what the documentation was pointing towards, that this is the non-deterministic thing. Now, we will see another thing, another example, that is the runtime data. Okay. So runtime data means cookie header or anything. So I will just open another example. So this is the this is the example. Okay, so consider this is another example where I have used cookies. Okay, so I'll just bring the cookies function from Next.js. So from next headers, I have imported the cookies. So here I have just used cookies, and I have extracted the theme variable, the theme value from the cookie store, and then I'm just printing that. So now we will use this here, theme info. Okay, so as we have used cookie here, and this is a runtime information, so Next.js clearly knows that this is a true dynamic thing because it's actually a personalized thing that needs to be shown to the user. So now, if we go here, and we will definitely see an error because, yes, we need to wrap it with suspense because it's a dynamic thing. Okay, so now we will just, similarly, I will do it with wrap it with suspense. So this is another example for Next.js dynamic APIs like cookies, headers, or any kind of dynamic stuff, dynamic APIs that you are using, or you are awaiting the connection. So now the error will go. So now we'll see if I reload. So actually now this component, the theme one, this is a dynamic component. One point I would like to mention that if you, like previously, if you want to make this theme component static, like if you say use cache here, and if you remove the suspense wrapping from here, what would you think? What will happen? Actually, this will give you an error because Next.js is 200% sure that this is a dynamic component. You cannot make it static with just, sorry, please don't annotate. So this is a theme info component which is using cookie values. So that's why you cannot make it dynamic component using just use cache. So it's actually saying that accessing dynamic data sources inside a cache scope is not supported. It is 100% sure that it is accessing a dynamic data, and you cannot mark it as a static thing. So what can you do if you want to statically render this component? In that case, you have to just take this out from you have to outsource this area to a different function and grab the cookie value and then pass it to the theme info component as prop. In that case, it will be static. Okay, so let's remove the use cache. I think this example is clear. So we have seen different, and I have to bring in the suspense as well. Okay, so what we have seen so far, you already got a bit of idea about what cache component is. Now we will actually learn one more thing, one small 2 or 3 things. Those are about revalidation. How can we revalidate the cache? Like, for example, we have some static content here. Like this is a static content, right? This is a random word, but we are getting it statically. Suppose in some areas you want to manually revalidate. For example, previously we would have used in Next.js 14 and 15, we would have used like revalidation 3000 second or this type of things. So, do you remember that we would have used like export, constant, revalidation, this type of things? Now these are gone. You don't need to do that. Okay, we can revalidate them either time-based revalidation or through on-demand revalidation. What is time-based revalidation? That means you can say that this component, this static component, needs to be refreshed hourly or needs to be refreshed per minute. Okay, so where can we say that? For example, let's do one thing. For example, let's say, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interrupting. I'm extremely sorry, but can we just like wrap it in a bit shorter version, because I think Paul is waiting. So
Okay. Sorry. So I think I will take take 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So basically, I will just revalidate one component, then it's done. So basically, we can. This is a static component, so we would have to revalidate it. In that case, what we can do is we can simply say cache life. This is a function. Okay. So here, if I can provide any string value, and as you can see, it's suggesting me. Default value is actually 15 minutes. So what is getting cached in the static area, that is actually 15 minutes cached. Okay. If you want to change it, you can just say minutes. Okay. Then per minute, after 1 minute, this will be reloaded. So I will not wait for the minute thing. I will just show you the last thing, that is the on-demand revalidation. Like, for example, you don't want to do it automatically after 1 minute. You want to do it whenever you need it. So you can call a API and just revalidate this small part. So in that case, you can just simply write a root handler here. Like you already know about Next.js API routes. So like, for example, I have already written one. This is an invalidate path. And here we can simply use revalidate path. We already know that about revalidate path. So I will bring it from here. So here we can simply I will just comment it out, cache life, and then I will use the revalidate path thing. So just let's say I have currently jelly here, and if I reload it, the path was revalidated. And now if I reload, you can see the word changed, and again it gets cached. So now I am manually or on demand, I am just changing just a small area of the whole page. This is actually path-based revalidation. So the entire page will be actually revalidated. If you want more granular control, you can use revalidate tag. Okay, revalidate tag. In that case, you have to just, instead of marking every page as revalidated, we can use cache tag. Okay, cache tag, and we can pass the cache tag name. Just give it a name, and I will revalidate that thing. Okay. Now, if I, for example, if I go here, currently it's seismic, and if I reload it, now if I go here, you'll see it changed, and then it became static again. So that's it. That's what I was trying to present. This is the QR code that you can scan. There you will find my presentation, the source code I have written. I will definitely push it in the repository right now. So that's it. That's it from my side. Thank you. And I would definitely thank you, everyone, and other speakers, my co-speakers as well. So thank you. Thank you, Taposh Da. Thank you, Shulagna. Thank you, the organizing committee.
Thank you.